Hey there, and welcome to the Total Potential Podcast. It's Cole, and I'm doing something a little bit different today, which is a solo cast. I recently had the great privilege of attending and participating in a Crucible event. And I have had so many people be really curious about this experience. And the curiosity has been one of what I would call disbelief and not even really being able to fathom doing an event like this. And to me, that's a myth. If I can do this experience, really, truly, anyone can. And I think the value of doing these types of experiences is not really talked about enough. And it's not communicated in a way where really you can understand the transformation of an experience like this past just that you have to get physically strong. Because at the end of the day, I can tell you for sure there's a lot more going on than just, spending some time in the gym to get ready to go. So here I am doing a solo cast all about my experience at SealFit's 20X. Jake and I have worked with and alongside and through Unbeatable Mind for years now. And it's such an incredible program. And it's the coaching certification that we both have so that we can deliver the learnings and the transformation that are possible through that framework to you and the people that we get to serve, which is such a gift. And Unbeatable Mind's sister company is SealFit. SealFit was originally geared and designed for individuals who were training to become part of the special operations community in the military, in different branches of the military. Developed by retired Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine, alongside of some of his super badass pals. And originally, the Crucible events were designed to allow people to have a glimpse. Candidates who wanted to go to BUDS, who wanted to become SEALs, to have a glimpse and a real life experience into what Hell Week would be like. The Navy has something like an 85% attrition rate through their BUDS program. And as you can imagine, that's a lot of time, money, and resources toward individuals who, for a host of reasons, do not end up becoming SEALs. And so originally, SealFit was designed as a training program for these individuals. And after several years of doing these programs, they started to have civilians ask them to participate. And so began the course that has allowed people like me, a 40-year-old mom of 3 kids, to participate in their events. Now, there are different levels of events. There is a 6-hour event, a 12-hour, which is the one I did, a 24-hour, and then a 50-hour. We've previously done a podcast with Brad Ritter, who wrote a book on his experience in the 50-hour Kokoro camp. And I can safely say, based on my 12 hours there, that is a whole nother level of a crucible. And by a whole nother level, I mean like, plus levels. So kudos absolutely to the people who really go for the literally hardest training in the world. But I did not do that. I did the 12-hour event. The 12-hour event is called 20X, and it is designed to show you that you are 20 times more capable than you think you are. And I can safely say that it is true. The other thing is that, when you look at these events look super physical. And they are. I mean, you have to train, you have to prepare the body to be able to attend these events. However, after experiencing this event, I can safely tell you that yes, your body has to be ready, or the event will be incredibly challenging for you to participate in. However, there's so much more beyond just your body that is happening. I love that these are called crucibles. Yeah, just really quickly, even the definition of crucible is a situation of severe trial leading to the creation of something new. I mean, how cool is that? Opting into a challenge, knowing that at the end of that experience, something new is going to be available to you. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit of what that looked like for me. Now, before you ever could even remotely consider stepping into one of these events, you really have to understand why you're doing it. Because if this is just an ego trip and you want to prove how strong you are, or how, that you're the best of the best around, like, this event's going to suck for you, because it's the events are not designed for your ego to take flight and feel like you are something special. That's not what they're there for. There's lots of places you can go and compete in events that do just that, and that's great if that's what you're looking for. But to really experience this event, you have to have a big reason why. And for me, there were a lot of reasons. I mean, a really long list of reasons. About a year and a half ago, before I really decided to commit to and train for this event, I thought I was really intrigued by the events. I had a little mini experience at a live Unbeatable Mind event, and they do like a little 2 or 3 hour beach experience that has some overlapping characteristics with their Crucible events. And when I was at that event, I was like, I really should do the 6 hour. And then immediately thought, well, I can for sure do the 6 hour. And so then I was like, damn, if I can for sure do the 6 hour, that's not even a trial. Like, I have to commit to something that feels like a stretch. Now, I will say that having been to this event now, there are a few things I would train differently for. If I were to do this, I probably could have done the 24 hour and would maybe like to do that at some point. We'll see what the future holds. But when I was starting to train for this event, I could do one pull-up, and pull-ups are a big part of the event. And so that was really kind of a line in the sand for me. Like, I have to be able to do this thing in order to be able to do the 12 hour, let alone the 24 hour. And so I knew I could do the 6 hour. The 12 hour was going to be a stretch. The 24 hour, I felt like I could easily be sent home from, because of just my pull-up capacity. So the 12 hour it was. The other aspect that came to mind when I was deciding to do this event is, for many of you listening, you know that I was in a pretty severe car accident when I was in college. And, I was told that I should never run again, that I would be really limited in my physical capacity. And I just needed to not believe that anymore. I had let a lot of that rest a long time ago, but I thought I could be fit. I didn't think I could be an athlete again. And to do this event, you have to be an athlete. I mean, you have to be able to do lots of different types of movements, and lots of whether it's carrying heavy load, whether it's moving fast, whether it's the functional movements, the pull-ups, the push-ups, the running. Like, you have to be able to do a lot of things. And for me, this was kind of like a long arc to the healing that has happened over the past, it's been over 20 years since this accident, but I really had to start telling myself a new story about my body and what it was going to be capable of. And a really interesting part of this experience was learning to train in alignment with my body, meaning I couldn't just train willy-nilly and like hope it turned out okay in the end. I had to be super thoughtful about how long I was running, how many days between runs, what was my recovery rate after those, more like hard pounding kind of exercises. I had to be really, my neck is fused. I had to be really mindful about my shoulder work and, how much I'm putting overhead and those types of things. And so that was the first time where I really got to develop new skills that I have maybe never had. I mean, I could only do one pull-up in high school as well. So, these were all new skills, but it really showed me that, yeah, I have a history of physical trauma. And, maybe there are some of these things that I quote unquote should not be doing, but it's just a story. And I'm going to train as deeply in alignment with my body as I possibly can and just see what comes out on the other side. So that was the second reason. The final reason, and for sure my most important reason by a long shot, was I remember thinking when I was younger that 40 was kind of like the downturn. Like that's when you were kind of becoming more sedentary and less capable and maybe starting to gain weight and just things that, I kind of watched in my environment around me, not necessarily things that had to be true, but just things that seemed part and parcel with becoming that age. And I turned 40 this year, and I just did not want my kids' model for what you get to be and what you can be to be that you're slowly degrading. I want them to see that you can do anything. And I really mean that. I mean anything you want to. If you're willing to put in the work to train and discipline yourself, commit yourself, but maybe most importantly, just believe that you can do anything. And so that factor, the leading by example, showing my kids that they get to decide what their future holds, that they can tap into their inner awesomeness and let it freaking shine bright everywhere they go. That was by far my greatest motivation for doing this event. And so I started preparing. I ended up training for almost a year and a half. I had decided in the summer, let's see, what year are we in? 2022. I decided in the summer of 2020 that I was going to do this event. And so I had really like a full year to train, because originally I was going to go to this event in September of 2021. And wouldn't you know, I got COVID like 12 days before I was supposed to be at this event. And I got hit pretty hard with COVID. I was in bed for like the vast majority of 2 weeks. And so that was like its own little crucible. And I think that's one of the most interesting lessons of having done this event, was that there were multiple crucibles, multiple challenges that led to transformation before I ever stepped foot in California at the event. COVID is a perfect example. When I got sick with COVID, I was devastated that I could not go to the event as I was scheduled to do. I, at that time, wanted to be done training. I felt like I had overtrained. I felt like I was kind of at the end of being able to continue to train the way that I had been. And there was definitely a level of fear present in attending the event and all of the unknowns and was I going to do okay? And, all of those things. And then when I couldn't go, I was devastated. And so I really had to sit with that. Like, okay, big deal. So I'm going to train for, an extra handful of months. Like, nothing bad is going to happen. And in the end, it was a godsend because the things that I was able to increase my training on before I ended up going in April, oh my gosh, like those were the difference between being able to feel okay during this event and feel like I could participate in a really meaningful way and absolutely feeling like I was getting my ass handed to me. And so, you know, hindsight's always 2020. Having gotten COVID was an actual godsend because I really got to be so much more prepared and physically ready for the event. But it was this little mini crucible of like, okay, well, what am I so afraid of that this feels horrible to not be able to go right now? Um, the lessons in training, like, okay, if I felt like I overtrained, how do I do this better next time? And so there were so many lessons that came out of that. A huge lesson and a huge part of the transformation over the course of the year and a half that I ended up training was just the overall discipline it took to stay after it day after day, week after week, from my sleeping and my recovery habits to my workouts to how I was eating. I had to really be super mindful because my body was now becoming something different than it had been before. And it took a ton of courage to be willing to tell a new story about my body. For me, a big part of this crucible experience leading up to it was that new story, like I had mentioned, related to what my body's capable of um, after having, a traumatic physical experience. But another new story that I had to tell myself was that it was okay to be really strong. I have lived in a relatively fit body for the vast majority of my life, waves of imperfection here and there, but I've I've been fit. I've never been overweight. Like I had lived in a very certain body, whether I was like strong or postpartum or whatever, I had lived within like a 2 pound weight range my whole life, regardless of what the, context and makeup of my body was. And I gained almost 10 pounds of muscle as I prepared for this event. And should it be a crucible of some kind to embrace a new body? Like, maybe not, but it was for me. It's still an unfolding experience to live in a body that is powerful, to live in a body that has like all new capacities and can do things that previously were unavailable. It has been I've really had to embrace a new story about like what a feminine body looks like and does. It's actually been a real challenge. And the truth is that I'm still sorting it out. I still haven't landed on complete acceptance of this new body. And that has been a crucible along the way. Like, why? Why do I tell myself a story about a certain body that I'm supposed to live in when that body that I used to live in could do a lot less than the body I live in now? Um, why do I have a story about what it means to be feminine in your body? Whose story is that? So there's been, that's just like real candid truth. There's been a real deep need to reflect and let go and embrace and just be really curious about how I can live in a body that's full of capacity and full of strength, um, and still love that body. And so that continues, but that part of it started beforehand and just has, continued since. The last kind of like crucible before the crucible that really stands out is that in the last couple of weeks leading up to leaving for California, I started to notice a really deep-seated concern about what were other people going to think about me when I was there. What were my teammates going to think? I work alongside many of the coaches who are at the event. What were they going to think of me as colleagues and friends? And that surprised the absolute crap out of me. I had been training for a year and a half. I'd worked my ass off. I had learned to do things that I couldn't do at all before. It just shocked me that I was finding myself so concerned about what other people thought. And of course, that revealed a really deep-seated challenge that I've worked with in different ways throughout my life. But the value that I bring and having my own self-worth and not gauging that self-worth based on what other people think, especially because how will I ever know what they think? and and how can that be the value that I place on myself, knowing what I showed up and did to prepare? And so that, again, yes, it happened before the event, but is something that continues to unfold and something that I've had to continue to work with. And maybe already you can see why this, super challenging physical event, it's not just a physical crucible. Like these challenges, like the body stuff has been super mental and super emotional. And same goes for the, self-worth. What's underneath of that? And for me, that goes into much deeper levels of like spiritual and like God higher level connection, because the value that I've placed on so many of these things are very worldly and very of like our current culture and society. And so how do I find like the higher level purpose, higher level truth within any of these things? And so, yeah, okay, you got to get strong. You have to train to go do these events. But for me, like the deeper level transformation has the physical's been like a drop in the bucket compared to the transformation that's happening basically in all other areas, in my beliefs, in my connection to God, in my emotional patterns. In things that end up hijacking every single day of our life and commanding our behaviors and our ways of being if they're not seen, if we don't see what they are and how they impact us. And so, yeah, if you're ever considering doing an event like this, yeah, get ready to train, get ready to work hard, get ready to eat right and sleep right, for sure. But get ready for something significantly deeper, significantly more transformative, because it transforms how you are in basically every situation in your life every day. And that's, pretty powerful transformation.
I'm excited that this podcast is brought to you by mkforhealth.com. Have you been looking for a powerful antioxidant to help support your immune health? Hello, of course we have. Look no further. mkforhealth.com offers an amazing product called Nutrimetrics OPC3. This product is an isotonic capable food supplement chock full of powerhouse antioxidants. Ingredients like citrus extract bioflavonoids, bilberry, grapeseed, red wine, and pine bark extracts, all incredible antioxidants. Then you have the OPCs. The oligomeric proanthocyanidins are bioflavonoids found in fruits, vegetables, and certain tree barks that have exceptional benefit to the human body. Studies have shown that these OPCs are up to 20 times more powerful than vitamin C and 50 times more powerful than vitamin E in neutralizing free radicals. Hello, sign me up for that. Nutrimetrix OPC3 also contains the only isotonic form of pygaginol in the world. Number 1, remember, isotonic, readily absorbed. Number 2, pygaginol, my new favorite word, is a natural plant extract from the bark of a French maritime pine tree, and it is the most clinically researched and potent bioflavonoid found. If you're ready to support your immune health and modulate inflammation in your system, all with incredible powerhouse antioxidants, natural extracts, and ingredients, this is your product. Go to www.mkforhealth.com to purchase your Nutrimetrix OPC3 today. That's www.mk4health.com. I'm excited that this podcast is brought to you by mkforhealth.com. Have you been looking for a powerful antioxidant to help support your immune health? Hello, of course we have. Look no further. mkforhealth.com offers an amazing product called Nutrimetrix OPC3. This product is an isotonic capable food supplement chock full of powerhouse antioxidants. Ingredients like citrus extract bioflavonoids, bilberry, grapeseed, red wine, and pine bark extracts, all incredible antioxidants. Then you have the OPCs. The oligomeric proanthocyanidins are bioflavonoids found in fruits, vegetables, and certain tree barks that have exceptional benefit to the human body. Studies have shown that these OPCs are up to 20 times more powerful than vitamin C and 50 times more powerful than vitamin E in neutralizing free radicals. Hello, sign me up for that. Nutrimetrix OPC3 also contains the only isotonic form of pygaginol in the world. Number 1, remember, isotonic, readily absorbed. Number 2, pygaginol, my new favorite word, is a natural plant extract from the bark of a French maritime pine tree, and it is the most clinically researched and potent bioflavonoid found. If you're ready to support your immune health and modulate inflammation in your system, all with incredible powerhouse antioxidants, natural extracts, and ingredients, this is your product. Go to www.mkforhealth.com to purchase your Nutrimetrix OPC3 today. That's www.mk4health.com.
Okay, so those were some of my most important lessons before the event. When I think about being at the event, I arrived like almost an hour early. It had a 6 a.m. start time, and I think I was there at like 5:15 because I did not want to get lost. I did not want to be late. And so you arrive in the dark, right? It's cold. You're in the desert in California. And there's so much anticipation because one of the things that's really cool about this event and why you can still experience so much is that there are a few things you have to perform for the event. You have to do the physical standards testing, which is timed push-ups, pull-ups, squats, sit-ups. Yeah. And then a timed run. And then you have to do Murph, which is a hero workout named after Lieutenant Michael Murphy. And that workout is a mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, and a mile run. So you have those two things, but like you really don't know what else. And so, a big part of starting the event is like, what on earth is about to happen? Like you just have no idea. And so the sun finally comes up, you check in, the coaches arrive, and boom, let's go. And the fun just goes from there. There were 22 people who started in my group. I really wish I had been able to catch the attention. There was one other woman who was in this group of 22 people. And I wish I had been able to catch her attention when she decided to leave. I don't actually know when she left. By the time we completed the first exercise, she was no longer there. But if I could do it again, I would link up with her a little bit more closely and just power her through, because I think she definitely could have done it. And so, speaking of the lessons while you're there, that team mate and team work aspect is by far the most incredibly obvious lesson from the whole experience. There is not one thing you can do at this event without considering the team. It doesn't matter if you're doing push ups, you're supposed to do them together. You're supposed to call them together. It doesn't matter if you're carrying, they call it the litter, but it's like a gurney. Like, you have to do that together, or everything that's on that litter is going to tip off, and then you're going to be slow. And then guess what? The whole team's doing burpees afterward. So it was this aspect of like, you constantly have to be working together. You constantly have to be figuring out your role within a team, because the teams change constantly. Like, for every single evolution, you're on a different team. So are you the leader of that team? Are you the follower and better learn how to be a good follower in that team? Are you the fast one on the team who wants everyone to go and do something harder, but that means you're leaving somebody behind? Are you the slow one on the team who is slowing everyone? And what does that feel like? Like, you cannot avoid the lessons of team at this event. And that was like, oh my gosh, so incredibly obvious, literally from the moment that we started. So I came home wondering, okay, how do I be a better teammate to the people that I really care about being teammates with, the people that I live in my house with? How do I be a better teammate to my husband? How do I be a better teammate to the team that is my family? How do I be a better teammate to the people that I work with? And I mean, we're on teams everywhere. Like, yeah, maybe you're not on a sports team anymore, but you are in groups where the dynamics of team are constantly present. And so how do you decide a meaningful, intentional way to show up on a team? Because guess what? Just like we talked about before, if you haven't identified those, shadow aspects that are driving your behavior, guess what? Those show up on teams real fast, and they become the challenging dynamics that teams have to work with. But in this event, those aspects are standing out immediately because the stakes are high and the challenge is incredible. And so you can't just brush, a way of being under the rug. You have to be able to recognize how you really show up and how you really want to be on a team, so that the whole team can crush it, instead of like, oh God, we came in last again, let's get our burpees done. Right? I mean, there's so much to learn about the team, how to work together, how to recognize other people's strengths, how to recognize their weaknesses and support them through them, how to let your own ego just like take a break, so that you can actually show up with your eyes on other people and not just focus on my team, or how does this team make me look. It's totally irrelevant. And so if I could say really the biggest lesson of the whole experience, that would be it. It's all about the team. As I mentioned, this experience goes far beyond the physical. Like, yes, I had to train, no doubt about it. My body had to change. I had to learn skills that I didn't have before. But that's not what's going to get you in these events. The body will bark and you'll tell yourself something like, there's no way that I can do that. But guess what? You're going to go do it. So that's where it like immediately goes way beyond the physical. Because what did you just tell yourself that made you believe the thing you're about to go do anyway, you can't do? I mean, how often do we do that to ourselves? We tell ourselves we can't, and then we go and we already decided that we can't, and so we don't. Well, in these events, that's not going to happen. You're gonna go do it. So you can almost like watch the thought move through your head of, I can't do that. I don't want to do it. I'm not gonna do it. And then you do. And so what was it? Was it fatigue? Was it, and okay, great. If it's fatigue, no problem. Now I've learned something about the need for my body to recover in certain ways so that I really feel full of capacity. Great, interesting. Was it that I came in last in the last event, and so now I feel down on myself and I don't want to even show up for the next event? Well, that's really possible, but you're going to still go do the next event. So how might you believe something more powerful so that when you come in last in something in life, you don't just give up, right? And so yes, you are doing physical things the whole entire time, but your mind is playing tricks on you the whole entire time. And so the mental training and transformation and awareness that happens in a Crucible event is mind blowing. What about emotionally? Well, guess what? There are times when it feels real bad, really bad, to be the person who's getting yelled at, or to be the person who held the team up, or to be the person who decided to run ahead of the group only to find out when you reach the finish line that you were supposed to be with your team. Like, these things feel bad. And so what's there? Things don't feel good or bad, but especially the bad things, they don't feel bad if we don't have some kind of attachment to the underlying tone, theme, pattern, whatever word makes sense for you there. We just don't. And so if we know that any emotional trigger is just revealing something to us that probably needs some healing or forgiveness or letting go, well, now I get to work with it. And that's what I mean. Like, these things are happening in our life all the time, but they're not that obvious because we're not under physical distress. We're not in and out of ice baths and feeling constantly uncomfortable. Like, these things become literally like things you can touch. They're so palpable in a Crucible environment because there's so much happening in your physical body that you cannot avoid the things that come up for you mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You can't avoid them. They're so touchable in these types of events. And that is really the gift of doing something like this, opting into a challenge that's going to reveal the things that are hiding from you. I had two things in this area that came up. One was the one I mentioned about beforehand, really wondering about my self-worth. For me, that lesson led to a deeper reliance on my faith, which is a transformation that's like incredibly special and meaningful to me. I have been a person of great faith for like a lot of my life. And yet here I was finding myself reliant on what I felt like was the opinion of other people. And once I could see that, once I could know that I was doing that, I could completely switch. So every time I had that little feeling of like, oh my gosh, what is that person going to think? I could just turn to God. God, please work through me. Please fill me. Please know that everything I'm doing is for you, for our connection, for the growth of my body and my system so that I can show up and do your work. Like for me, that's a transformation that maybe it would happen at some point in my life, but this type of discomfort and this type of crucible event led to that within 2 weeks' time. I noticed this 2 weeks before the event. And by the time I got to the event, was in a completely different space. So transformation one in the spiritual domain. Transformation number two has been a little bit challenging, but it is not like no less important because this has really influenced the way I behave in a lot of arenas in my life. During the event, in the very last event that was part of the 12-hour experience, was all log PT. Log PT basically means that you have somewhere between 6 and 7 people. We had 7 people on a 300 to 400 pound log. This log moves from the ground to your hip, to your shoulder, overhead, to your shoulder, your hip, back to the ground. But my God, do you spend a lot of time with that thing either on your shoulder or up overhead. And it's freaking hard. It turns out to be about 50 pounds a person moving up overhead. And you do it for a long time, and you do it until you do it right. And when you set the log down, you get down on the log and you do push-ups. Like it is grueling. And it's not the first thing of the day. Like you've been going. My event ended up being about 13 and a half hours in the end. And so you're like over 12 hours into this, still doing this type of work, which is why I just give so many kudos to the people who do the 24 and the 50-hour event, because I really like so incredible. But this log is over my head and my arms are done, like absolutely done. And the cramps through my shoulders and my neck and everything are just like, won't stop. And for a moment, and I didn't want to do this, I regret doing it. It's been like one of the hardest things for me to reconcile. But for like a brief moment, I took my hands off the log when it was overhead, which of course means that now my 6 other teammates are carrying my weight, right? And just released my shoulders for a second and then put my hands back up on the log. And after the log came back down from that hold, I got absolutely ripped a new one by one of the coaches. And in the moment, and you can probably even hear my voice, I felt terrible. Like I didn't want to do that. If I were to do that event again, like I would spend a lot more time training the overhead work because it was brutal. And I felt horrible in the moment and made sure that nothing like that happened again, and that I showed up for my teammates and that I didn't let myself find an easier way out. But what it revealed to me was afterward, I could not stop thinking about that guy yelling at me. Like I could not stop thinking about it. And, the thing that stood out to me afterward was I've never, and I mean never, been okay with getting yelled at. I've never been okay with getting into trouble. I've never been okay with feeling like I did something that was somehow then led to the consequence of being reprimanded, especially, throwing some F-bombs in a loud voice. And it's, not my fave. But afterward, I had to reconcile with myself, and I'm still like really working through it, that I have cultivated my life and my way of being to avoid those types of interactions at all costs. I have been an incredible rule follower, like an incredible. And there have been so many ways in my life where that has served me, right? Teachers always loved me. I got to be the captain of a team because, I just knew how to operate my life and my behavior in a way that would be pleasing to other people so that I could avoid the exact situation that happened to me at 20x. But here's the thing. Yes, that served me in a lot of ways, but at the end of it is fear. What's on the other side of that isn't that I love following rules. It isn't that I love pleasing people. It's that I'm afraid of being exposed to that type of anger, to that type of aggression. But I don't want to live my life afraid. And I also don't want to live my life playing by the rules. Whose rules are they? Who decided the rules? And so it has been a gnarly trip working on that, because guess what? That's been a deep-seated pattern of like my whole life. I don't ever remember not being afraid of anger or afraid of aggression. I don't ever remember not feeling like I wanted to avoid that. And so in the 13th hour, this incredibly deep, painful shadow element that I walk around every single day with was shown to me like in one moment's time. And that's the kind of transformation. Like, let's get over the fact that this is physically hard. The physically difficult part of it is simply a mechanism for getting to every other level of your being. For me, that happened both before and after the event and during. It has been a lot of uncomfortable, but super incredibly life-changingly important work since the event. The lessons after the event have been so much about recovery, right? We live in a culture where we're supposed to be going 1,000 miles an hour at all times. We're supposed to just bounce back from everything. And the weird thing is my body didn't even hurt afterward. I wasn't even sore. I mean, my hands hurt. My hands were like wide open, ripped to shreds. But other than that, I felt great. But I have never been that tired in my whole life. Like I could not sleep enough to really bounce back. It took weeks. And so to have the patience with myself to actually take weeks and not just immediately hop back to the gym and not just immediately hop back to my, daily routine of like grind and go. I think for a lot of us, that's a really hard lesson, to be willing to listen to our bodies and actually recover in a meaningful way. And then guess what? Full circle. The self-worth component that I was struggling with beforehand came right back afterward. Did I do enough? Should I go again? What should I do? Should I train harder and in new ways so that I don't have to get yelled at again? So that I can last longer, so that my hands can be stronger. Like it just spiraled into the ways where I could have done more. And I could have done more, but I trained hard. I trained really hard. I took a body that normally does yoga and Pilates and turned it into a body that runs and does Murph and carries heavy shit. Like, I worked really hard. And the fact that I still find myself saying, was it enough? Should I go again? There's that same thing, right? The thing that I keep getting to work on. And so the lessons of, yeah, it's physical. I get it. It's really hard. It's physically super demanding. But my answer to why people are so confused why I did this is that if you are ready for transformation, you can take your time. No problem. I've done both ways. You can take your time and let the work reveal itself. Or you can do something like this that literally in one day can change your life. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean it's going to be pain-free. In fact, it's going to be like the opposite of that. But at the end of it is a transformation that you're not going to get out of any other one day of your life. And for me, that's been worth its weight in gold. Something that I've been really surprised that like so many people have used this specific word about me since going to the event, which has been that they have multiple, different people use the word badass. And for me, that word just means fully expressing my potential. Right? What does a badass do? They go and do the things that other people believe they can't do. And my greatest hope as a 40-year-old mom of three, the only woman who finished in my group, there was one other woman in the Kokoro group, and she was way badass. She had trained for 8 years to go to the event. She did not speak a word of English, and she was just crushing it the whole time. It was really fun to see. But my greatest hope is that really anyone listening, anyone who sees the pictures, anyone who asks me about it, my greatest hope is that you start to believe not something about me, but something about you, something about the vastness that you are capable of, something about the truth of who you are, something about your willingness to pursue hard things. Because I'm like just a real average person, but I'm willing to tell myself a different story. I'm willing to dig into the real like nasty discomfort of seeing where I need work, of seeing the things I'm afraid of and I need more courage to pursue, more love to embrace. Like, I'm just a super normal person. But the badass in me is that I feel deeply that we are called to fully express ourselves in the perfectness of our creation. And how can I believe that if I'm not willing to do it? How can I show my kids that? How can I tell them they can be anything they want to be if I just go and don't do anything. So for me, that's where the badass is, that can we start to pursue the full expression of our potential? If I ask myself, what do I believe now that I didn't believe before? It's that I'm just getting started. I don't know if I'll do another one of these events, if I would do a longer one, if I would go by. My son has talked about potentially going to the shorter event. I would do that with him in a heartbeat. But if I ask myself, what do I get to believe now? It's literally that I'm just getting started. There is nothing that I'm willing to put a ceiling on, physically, mentally, in business, in love, in my family, nothing. And that's a belief I like. It's a belief that feels a lot better than my old belief. And more than anything, since experiencing this, the question for me is, how do I help and support others to believe in this insane possibility that lives inside? What a gift it is to do the work that I do and support people in their own state of transformation. It is literally the greatest gift to be able to do. And underneath of that is my just wild and massive hope that other people start to touch, start to know, start to see, start to experience the insane awesomeness, that lives inside of them. This quote has come up so many times recently, like so many times recently. And so I'm just going to read it because it's coming up in coaching, it's coming up in my own work, it's coming up all around me. And this is a quote by Marianne Williamson. It says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond all measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us, not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we were liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Time to shine freaking bright, people, and allow your own shining, your own truth, your own expression, your own full and complete potential. Give other people around you who you encounter, who you're in relationship with, have permission to do the same. And that's the ultimate leading by example, right? The ultimate. So would I do it again? The answer is literally a million times yes, because 13 and a half hours, it gave me new life. And that's worth doing again. All right, you guys, if anyone has questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm super happy to share this experience, what you can expect from training. And if you are interested in pursuing a SealFit event, they're incredible. I can't say enough about them. Always feel free to reach out because there's so much possible. It's all just sitting in you, ready to rock and roll. So thank you so much for joining me today. Again, my greatest hope is not that you believe something about me, but that now you get to believe something about you. So I hope you have an awesome day. Thank you so much for your time. We'll catch you next time.